Good afternoon. Glad to see everyone here, and I'm pleased to welcome everyone on behalf of the College of Engineering at California State University, Long Beach. My name is Furuzan Golshani, and I'm Dean of the College. The lecture series, the Distinguished Lecture Series, came about as a result of quite a bit of consultation on the part of the Dean's Advisory Council. And this was a response to the challenges that the National Academy of Engineering identified back in 2007, 2008, a list of them, and presented them to the engineering community, addressing major issues that engineers should be concentrating on. On that list are issues like energy, environment, definitely healthcare, bioengineering, education. And there was something else as well that made a huge impact, and that was mapping the human brain. And if you recall, about 2 weeks ago, the announcement came that President made some allocations towards this, and this project will be up and running. So today's distinguished lecture is organized by the Dean's Advisory Council of the College of Engineering. And I'm pleased to introduce the members of the organizing committee, the subcommittee that organizes this. It is chaired by Nick Ceramic. Members are Mr. Mike Nigley, Ms. Susan Fort O'Neill, Mr. Matt Petrine, Mr. Matt Rizvani, and Mr. Kent Peterson. Thank you for your great work in organizing this event for us. I think there are some other members of the Advisory Council that are here. Dan Craig on that side, and also Parviz Parhami and Mike Bagramian are somewhere in the audience. Very pleased to have you with us. The event is sponsored by a number of friends of the university, including Applied Medical, San Diego Gas and Electric, P2S Engineering, Port of Long Beach, Denso, and Fort Design and Technolink Association. Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause for the sponsors. So I see that there is an empty seat still, and that happens when you deal with those who save lives. Sometimes priorities kick in, and the lecture becomes secondary to what a surgeon has to do. So we will wait to see whether Dr. Betancourt will arrive or not. If not, we will have plenty of well-qualified folks who will present the perspective that Dr. Betancourt was going to do. Today's event is moderated by Nick Ceramic. Nick is a senior project leader in systems engineering for the Aerospace Corporation, where he has worked for over 30 years, primarily on military satellite systems. He is American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, AIAA Associate Fellow, and a Computer Systems Technical Committee member. In 2007, the Mayor of Long Beach, Honorable Mayor Bob Foster, appointed Nick to a 6-year term on the Long Beach Board of Harbor Commissioners, and he represents the ports on Intermodal Container Transfer Facility Joint Powers Authorities Governing Board. All one title. And I'm proud to say that Mr. Ceramic is a distinguished alum of the College of Engineering, earning both a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and a master's degree at the beach. He's also a member of the Dean's Advisory Council, and he's chairing the Distinguished Lecture Subcommittee. Please welcome Mr. Nick Ceramic.
Great. Thank you, Dean. First, I'd like to thank all of our panel members. You can see one is very busy. I'm sure he's been in surgery probably half the day or the full day. So hopefully he'll be here before we finish tonight. I just want to say that I really appreciate you guys, taking the time and spending it with us, because we're going to learn a lot. This is a fantastic field for the Cal State Long Beach, for the students to really, and the faculty to really understand where some of the robotics and medicine is going to be going in the future. Second of all, I'd like to really thank all of you for being here, because you're what really makes this. It's really a pleasure to be able to point in different directions. We've had this lecture series now for 3 or 4 years, and let you know about some of the different fields that are out there. And for the students, I mean, these are just growing fields. There's so many opportunities out there. So we'd just like to be able to present those to you and let you know, there's some great futures out there, great areas to go and move into. So it's a challenge for all of you. Usually I like to lead off with a few slides, give you a preview of what we're going to be doing. But this time, I really don't want to do that. I really want to reserve the time for our experts here and give them as much time as possible to really go in depth and on everything that they want to talk about, because I think we're going to be covering a lot of area here. But I just want to mention something real quickly that happened to me about 3 weeks ago. I had surgery, and I won't say what the surgery was, but the doctor told me it was a fairly extensive operation. And originally, when they first started doing this surgery, there was about a 10-day hospital stay for recovery. And then as equipment evolved and techniques evolved, it got down to about a 5-day stay in the hospital. Well, I know someone else who went through this probably 10 years ago. It was a 2 to 3 day stay in the hospital for recovery. Well, when I had it 3 weeks ago, it is now outpatient. Okay, and it's all because of technology, advanced equipment, stuff that's being developed. It's probably some of it's being used here at Cal State and other areas. So it's all because of that. I literally walked out, went in around lunchtime, and was home for late dinner. It was fantastic. So, I mean, that's just a preview of what you're going to see here. You're going to see some stuff in robotics and some other stuff that's happening that should be very, very exciting. So I really want to give these guys, plenty of time to talk over it. Let's see. So one thing I did want to say was that, and we started last time, and I'm not going to read the bios of the speakers. They come up here. You have this book. It's a real nice book. It really gives you the bios. I hope everyone really reads those and understands it, and really understands how the credentials of all of our speakers, tremendous credentials of all of our speakers. So, just read the book, and I don't want to go and take time to do that. But our speakers are really going to be talking all the way from state of the art today, where we are today in robotics and some of the equipment that's going on, and then really get into the design, the engineering, applications, and even some of the drivers of new technology. How are we going to go and implement this stuff, and any impediments to implementing in the future? So to get it started, okay, we were going to have Dr. Bethencourt, but hopefully he will show up later on. So I'd like to introduce Gary Johnson, who is president of the surgical group at Applied Medical. Gary?
All right, thank you everybody, and good afternoon. I'm truly honored to be here. This is a subject near and dear to my heart, and so I'm very excited to be talking to you about it. I'm going to be talking to you today about the engineering and design considerations of robotics in medicine. And I think you guys will all agree the natural start to talk about that is this. The The horseless carriage. Back in the 1880s, 1890s, and prior to that, the most often used mode of transportation was the horse, or a horse-drawn carriage. And as romantic as that was, it had many problems. And the primary problem, of which for anybody that has ever been a horse owner, is horses make a lot of manure, lots and lots of it. In 1894, the Times of London published an article that projected that the horse manure problem in London would cover the streets 9 feet deep in 40 years. That was a true projection, and it was published. In New York, they had published an article that said that the streets of Manhattan would be covered to the 3rd-story window of every building. And these were actual projections at the time that this existed, okay? This was actually available. And we all know this was the solution to that problem today. But if you were to suggest that back then, it was very controversial to have suggested this would solve the manure problem in the cities. But it did. And the controversy didn't come out of the fact that the problem existed or that we needed a solution to it. The problem came out of the solution itself. The controversy came out of the solution itself. These devices, this technology, was complicated, it was unsafe, it was unreliable, and most importantly, it was very, very expensive. It was so expensive that it wasn't even considered a realistic solution to taking one of these to transport yourself around instead of using a horse. That was the primary problem. And our technical predecessors had their work cut out for them to actually solve those issues, to make sure that this could be adopted en masse. And the problem wasn't necessarily that technical, it was social in nature. It was a social problem. And that's what they were dealing with at the time. And as you guys know, you know the rest of the story in this area. Whenever you have a new technology like this, there's an opportunity for some sort of visionary to emerge. And these visionaries have a longer term perspective on the problems and a longer term perspective on the solutions. The visionary here was Henry Ford. And through Henry Ford's vision came 2 things, the Model T, and more importantly, the assembly line. 2 visions, inventions that changed the way we transport ourselves around today. It was from his vision that he didn't create the next $100,000 car. He created 100,000 $100 cars. And that made transportation, this kind of technology, available to all of us. That was the vision. Similar things happened in computers. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, they made personal productivity available to all of us. They changed social interaction. Well, nearly everything we do today in the modern world were changed by their vision. And I think in medical robotics, similar to the issues here, the visionary might be sitting in this room. Because just like the automobile, medical robotics today, in a lot of cases, the way they're implemented are considered the playthings of the wealthy. Okay? They are not able to be adopted en masse. And similar to the transportation problem back in the 1890s, healthcare has an unsustainable developing large pile of manure. That's probably the limit of my metaphor, I think. I'll just stop that there. I probably took it a little too far, actually. You guys all know these statistics. 18% of everything we produce in this country, almost 18%, is healthcare. Everything we produce. If the Model T was produced today, there'd be more healthcare in it than there would be metal. Okay? That's how much healthcare there is in this country. 47 million uninsured in the wealthiest country in the world. Insurance premiums increasing 87% during the 3 years that this study was performed. 47th in life expectancy. 50% of all US bankruptcies are caused by a medical issue and paying for that medical issue. And all of these statistics, don't get me wrong, they have their advocates and they have their adversaries. But everybody does agree that in the mix, in the soup, they spell unsustainable. This has been an issue that has been illicit and ignored for many, many years, but today is widely accepted, and we talk around our dinner tables with it today, and we've tried to legislate ourselves past it. Really, the solution is similar to the solution of the past. We have technologies available today. We have automation, we have robotics that can help us bring about better outcomes and can bring them to us for less. We can make better outcomes more available, not less available. But if you were to Google robotic surgery, set that in your Google alerts, you will see headlines like this: robotic surgery, more marketing hype than surgical necessity. Or this one: out of all the instruments and surgical tools that hospitals have adopted, this is one of the most expensive items in American operating rooms today. Or this: it's a symbol of what's wrong with American healthcare, the widespread adoption of an expensive new technology with little evidence to support its use, all within the context of a misinformed public. This is a shame. What's happening here is an absolute shame, because robotics should be the beacon of the solution to better patient outcomes, better technology, better availability, automation, procedures that can be done that a human hand cannot do alone, and instead it has become the lightning rod of what's wrong with American healthcare. Very similar to the automobile back in its day. This is an opportunity for a visionary to emerge. And you might ask yourself, well, how did something that should be so good, a robot that can automate a nurse's life, that can automate central supply, that can do procedures humans can't do by themselves, become a lightning rod? What has happened is when I joined healthcare over 20 years ago, healthcare used to be health and care. And somewhere along my tenure, I don't think I'm to blame for it, it turned into the healthcare industry. And when it did, profit for medicine became primary over, medicine for profit, became primary over medicine for the patient. And when that occurred, based on an archaic reimbursement system, products like this were sold and abused and not used. These devices are expensive. A medical surgical robot can cost over $2 million. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain it every year, and it adds thousands of dollars per procedure. Its commercial industrial equivalent is at least 2 orders of magnitude less in price than the same medical device. The issues here, like the issues back in the 1890s, are not just technical in nature. We have decades worth of robotic technology available today that can be implemented. They are social in nature. We need the visionary in medical robotics that can make medical robotics more available and not less available. Right now, medical robotics are being used as marketing tools for hospitals to bring patients in against other hospitals across the street. They're sold on fear that if you don't have a robot, the patient will go to the hospital across the street, so you have to buy a robot. It's an escalating medical arms race that's going on right out there. That's wrong, because we need robotics to make improved patient outcomes. And if they're continued to be abused this way, robotics will get a bad name in the process. And we're seeing that in the press right now. There's a CNBC expose on medical robotics. There's a 60 Minutes expose on medical robotics. These all came out in the last couple of months. And that's happening today. Don't get me wrong. I'm explaining the problem. We're all engineers, or there's a lot of engineers in this room, and engineers like to know, what is the definition of the problem? The definition of the problem is not simply technical, it's social in nature, and you have to understand that. I am very optimistic about the transformation our healthcare is going through today. Very optimistic. No one will go back to remember the good old days of 2013 and as anything other than a quaint time of expensive, scarce healthcare. The future we're headed to is a future of sustainability, a future of innovation, a future of technology applied, and a future of making healthcare more available, not less available. And robotics plays a big role in that, and it will play a big role in that. A social role. And so do I think, are there medical robotics in our future that can do a safer, more accurate, more effective, and more efficient job than humans? Absolutely there are. Those exist today. They exist right now. They do phenomenal things out there. But the second question is the important one. Will those robotics improve patient outcomes and lower healthcare costs? Absolutely they will. They have to, for this to succeed and for us to succeed as a society and deliver healthcare to all of the people in this nation. And the best is that work is still available for you to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, next what we're going to do is Dr. Bethencourt is here, and we're going to have him come on last so we can load his slides up and transfer them over, but don't worry, he's here, you won't miss a thing. So next will be Howard Freed. Howard is Global Manager, Business and Product Development at CAE Healthcare. Let's see.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. Like Nick mentioned, I work at CAE Healthcare, so I'm involved in the simulation space, which is what I'll be talking to you about today. So I'm just going to talk at a really high level about some of the milestones in medical simulation to set the stage for you to understand better that it has been around for a long time. This isn't something new, although its applications are becoming more widespread. I'm going to focus a little bit around surgical simulation specifically, so I'll talk a little bit and show you some images of the types of simulators that are available on the market. I'll also talk a little bit about why simulation, what's the motivating factor to adopt it and to really embrace it and its importance moving forward. And finally, its impact on helping support the adoption of new procedures and new technologies, all with an outcome goal of better patient safety and better procedural results. So I put together just a small timeline here just to, again, set some context. So as you can see, as far back as 1969, they had the introduction of patient simulators, specifically ones driven by computers. You have had ones back in the 1920s that were a simple life-size doll, if you will, that you can practice everything from CPR, but they have advanced a lot, and starting in the 60s, specifically here in Southern California, you had the introduction of a PC-driven one. And as you can see, as time went on, you had the introduction of other types of patient simulators, more sophisticated ones, surgical simulators, catheterization simulators, and the list goes on, and more recently even ultrasound simulators. So as you can see here, the technology is kind of outlined in its different formats, and it continues to evolve. It gets smaller, it gets more sophisticated, but all focusing on specific training needs and educational goals. So again, just focusing on surgical specifically, they usually fall into a few different types of categories, from your very high-end, high-fidelity, haptic-enabled systems right through to a lower fidelity task trainers, or what are also referred to as box trainers. So I've listed here just a few types or brands that exist on the marketplace, and when we talk about the virtual reality or VR simulators, those are computer-driven graphics projected on a screen that mimic to the best of the graphics capabilities today. And again, that keeps evolving, especially with the help of Hollywood and special effects and the video gaming industry. And the sensations that the physicians will experience when performing these operations on the system are generated by what we call haptic force feedback, which many of you may already be familiar with. Then as you kind of start to tone down the technology to a certain degree, we have what we call augmented reality. And what that does is it takes a box like you can see here in the middle of the screen, and it embeds in it some cameras. It adds a graphics overlay. So the physician can operate on an organ tray that's made up of maybe silicon or latex type anatomy pieces. And then we can overlay some graphics on top of that that'll give them some indication as to where should they make the incision, or we can add a pulsing artery just to kind of add a landmine in there for them to navigate around, so that they understand when they're in the real clinical setting, these are some pitfalls to avoid or areas that they should focus on more specifically. And both the virtual reality and the augmented reality simulators are also feature robust metrics. So it allows the user to understand how they're performing, are they improving over time, what should their end goals and objectives be, and are they tracking towards those? And finally, kind of falling in line with what Gary was talking about, and I know we're going to have Dr. Betancourt talking about surgical robots. So how you use the surgical robot is very different than an open procedure where you have direct visualization and your hands are inside of the patient. So understanding how to use the robot, engaging your feet and your hands involves a lot of training, and simulation has played a very important role in that. Company like Intuitive Surgical, which is the leader when it comes to surgical robots, have themselves developed their own platforms, and they've reached out to third parties to enable other mediums and mechanisms, both at a higher price point and a lower price point, to allow the physicians to gain that practice and experience, and gives them that opportunity to have 30, 40 cases of practice under their belt before they might ever even touch a patient, even with the support of a peer who's done so themselves. Now, the most widely used simulators and adopted globally are what we call the task trainers or box trainers. Outside, you can see an example here, which is kind of a hybrid of that augmented reality and the box trainer. And the most successful and widely known one is called FLS, or the Fundamentals of Laparoscopic Surgery. This was the first time that a simulator was starting to be used for maintenance of certification, accreditation. In the case of the Harvard group and the Crico Insurance group up in the New England, they will actually offer a reduction in malpractice insurance to the surgeons who go through and pass the Fundamentals of Laparoscopic Surgery simulator tasks. And this is now expanding into endoscopy and other areas. Again, I've listed just a few companies, but this is just a small cross-section of the types and numbers of task trainers around the world. And it could be anything from practicing to tie knots to specific tasks or skills that you need to become proficient and competent at when doing an overall procedure. And these are made by standalone companies. They could be made out of a little mom and pop shop. And as well, a lot of the surgical device companies, like I listed here, Applied Medical, they use them very successfully to help provide that medium to physicians and to surgeons to practice. And what's really important to note is that with ethical considerations of using cadavers, if you look at using pig models, which are very commonly used, it's counter-religious in places like the Middle East. You have ethical considerations in Western Europe, and they're moving away from animal models. So simulation becomes that avenue to allow you to gain that experience and that practice, whether it's hand-eye coordination, decision-making, or technical skills. So really the big question is, well, why now? What's so important that we really need to start leveraging simulation? So I thought that one of the really premier papers that highlighted this was actually given initially as an address at the Central Surgical Meeting by Dr. Richard Bell, who was also the executive director of the American Board of Surgery. And in 2005, he surveyed all 250 surgical residency program directors in the US. And together they determined that there were 300 operations or procedures that general surgeons should be proficient at when graduating their residency and going on to become faculty. Within that, they said there's 121 that are considered essential operations. And as you can see here, and it's going to be hard to read from the back, but what I wanted to show in this diagram is that the number of operations that they're getting exposure to drops dramatically. You couple that with reduced working hours, so how are you going to get that exposure? And as you can see here, 18 of the 121 procedures, they had seen maybe an average of 10 times throughout their whole surgical residency training, and then it drops from there. So you can see that 31 procedures they see less than once, and 63 of them, the mode of experience was 0. So I probably shouldn't have to do a raise your hand if you wanted to be that patient on the table, having this resident now graduate to faculty and everybody's looking at them. So the traditional Halstead model of see one, do one, teach one, if you're not seeing enough of them and you're definitely not doing them, how can you really be in a position to teach one? So again, that's where really simulation can play a very important role. Now, it's not just in the US, it's global in its implications. So in 2003, 82% of Canadian residents, general surgery residents in laparoscopic surgery felt their training was inadequate. You jump over the pond into Europe, into the Netherlands, 18% of graduating residents who were going into gastrointestinal or surgical oncology surgery felt that their training in advanced was, that they felt they were adequately trained. So, and this spreads no matter where you are, and it applies to a lot of different disciplines, not just laparoscopic surgery, which is kind of one of the more common types. So what's also driving this is the technology revolution. And Gary alluded to this a little bit as well. There's new devices coming out every day. There's new procedures that are coming out all the time, both for better patient outcomes to help reduce cost, improve recovery time. And medicine today is not static, and it will continue to evolve. So if you look back just a short time ago, everything was done as an open procedure. Well, now most general surgery cases, at least the first attempt, is laparoscopic. Why open the patient up, increase the hospital stay, increase the chance of risk if you can do it through little holes, potentially don't even need sutures to close up. So that's really driving it. You combine that again, like I mentioned, with the shortened work week, this information overload of keeping up to speed. So where do you have that opportunity to practice? And none of us want to be that experiment for the doctor. You talk about specialization and this lifelong learning. So all things coupled together really lend themselves well to the use of simulation. And coming from a company whose parent company provides aviation training to over 80% of the world's pilots, there is an expectation that at some point down the road, simulation in healthcare, specifically in surgery, will be a mandatory step every year, every several years to maintain your certification. Like I mentioned, groups like up in the Northeast with CRICO, they make it mandatory, but there is something in it for the physician. There are evolutions more recently where you can take patient data, put them into a simulator, and practice before you ever touch the patient. And if you look at major sports like golf and you look at the top performers, they spend more time on the driving range than they do actually competing. So simulation is that avenue for the surgeon to practice, perhaps even to warm up with some simple tasks before walking into the operating room cold, exhausted, maybe from a night on call. You just want to be able to help reduce those events and improve the patient's care. So really the end goal, like I mentioned, really improving patient safety. At the end of the day, whether you're designing medical devices, whether you're providing an educational medium, whether you're the physician delivering care, it's about improved safety, better patient outcomes, decreasing errors through practice. Again, you can never account for the unexpected events, but the more that you practice for them, and I think the events in Boston last week were a very good example where the simulation has been used over and over for everything from mass casualty events to practicing on a procedure. It's invaluable in allowing you to not focus on what should I do next. It becomes that innate, I've done it so many times like the military has proven over and over. Simulation also, again, offers that unlimited practice in a very safe environment. People, as just part of their learning, need to be able to have the opportunity to make mistakes, and you don't want that to happen on a patient on the table. And finally, like I mentioned, maintenance of certification, having this as a formal part of the curriculum will become something that's even more important moving forward. Some of the obstacles that we faced in the simulation space was that the early adopters, they were very innovative, but it wasn't tied to a specific curriculum. When should we have our students use the simulator? So it was this really fun toy at the beginning, a very expensive acquisition depending on the level of fidelity. It was used a little bit, and then it went into the corner and started to collect dust because they didn't understand how, when, and why they should use it. And a lot of that is now starting to turn, I think, to the benefit of all of us. And I think that's where your role as engineers comes into play, because these need to offer a level of fidelity that to a certain degree can replicate what the doctors will see in the operating room or in the clinic, but it has to be flexible as the technology and the procedures evolve, and cost effective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Howard. I'll tell you, afterwards we're going to have a question and answer session. I got a whole bunch of questions. So simulation is just fascinating because of my work that I do. job, my normal job. It's just, we use simulation, because there are a lot of things you literally can't do except for, like here, it's just, you don't want to go to the operating table and have not had experience doing that one once in a while. And probably Dr. Marks knows about that. So our next speaker will be Dr. Mel Marks, who is Executive Vice President of Research with Memorial Care Health System. Dr. Marks.
You think I'm real, but I'm actually a robot. I was thinking that as I was coming over and wondering why am I here? Well, first of all, through the graciousness of your dean and through a growing relationship between the Memorial Care Hospital system, which is now being transformed to a healthcare system, and the recognition of the discovery that occurs in academic centers like this. And you are the people that are inventing the new tools for healthcare to be successful. Similarly, I was thinking chemists are developing new drugs, and then we are testing them in hospital and other clinical populations to see if they're valuable and hopefully scientifically proving their value. Well, you are the equivalent on the engineering side, on the mechanical side. But I was thinking even the chemist now doesn't use a test tube or a graduate cylinder. They actually use computers to design the chemical agents that are creating the new drugs. So some of you may have computers, I don't know, and you would understand what I'm talking about. That was a joke. Okay, thank you. So, I was changing my entire presentation, Dr. Bethencourt, because we thought you were really had your hands or your robot full of, your robotic arms full of a patient's heart. So I was going to tell you about doing surgery, heart surgery, as if I were Dr. Bethencourt, which would be terrible because I have no idea how he does it. And you would hear basically a fabrication, which wouldn't really help very much. But I'm going to go back to what I want to talk about. I was supposed to sum up, so I did hear about the manure stuff at the beginning, and that was kind of interesting, and some of the other innovations. But I want to run through some elements just to stimulate you the future of the development of these tools to assist us in taking care of patients. I'm a pediatrician by background, a clinical research scientist by my current avocation, and so I'm really about helping people. So I'm appealing to you to collaborate with us to help people, and you've already demonstrated you can do so. So now I have to do this. No, what did I do now? Oh, there you are. So when I first started to put together my little presentation, I was thinking, well, what is medical robotics? And it has a large scope. It's everything from using automation to take care of people to using traditional robots in clinical settings. And as Dr. Bethencourt will demonstrate to you, I was actually going to have to do the demonstration because I didn't have any slides. I was going to ask for a volunteer, but I don't have to do that. And then, of course, prosthetics. There's probably a longer list than this, but I saw there's quite a large scope of robotics. So this is, I hate to disappoint you, this is actually a robot in play, walking around the hospital unit, delivering drugs, delivering food, collecting specimens, and navigating down the hallway. And it is a disappointment because you expected to see, like, one of those Hollywood lookalikes to men, but that's what they look like now. They are navigatable machines. If any of you have a vacuum cleaner that is robotically engineered, it runs around the room. If you have a swimming pool, you have similar things sweeping the bottom of the pool. Well, this adaptation to clinical settings has a great impact on clinical care, and also you can see some of the economic and manpower impacts as well. But also to be a little more patient focused, you can see here how the same technology that has been engineered for that other robot can be engineered for a mobile platform for a child who cannot get around because of some deformity that doesn't allow them to learn to crawl and to walk and get about. You can program this so he can get around the house, he can get around the school when they're older, and so on. And it's kind of equivalent to the horseless carriage you showed before, but this is, the wheelchair of today is the horseless carriage, and this is the car of tomorrow that will transport people around. So what are the drivers? What's, other than your ingenuity and the fact that you're going to replace us all with robots? I think, are there any robots in the audience? No, I don't know. You never know. For me, the primary driver is to improve outcomes, and I'm sure Dr. Bethencourt will demonstrate that. It is to do things in a way that is safer, more effective, less painful, reduces suffering and morbidity, and so on. That's self-evident. Decreasing hospitalization. Of course, who wants to be in a hospital? You know, I work there every day. It's a horrible place to be. But really, you don't want to be in the hospital for a whole bunch of different reasons. And the new Health Reform Act actually speaks to decreasing hospitalization as an economic driver, in that it is the most expensive part of care that is going to be decrementally reduced by innovation in health reform. So the story that you told about making your procedure an outpatient procedure, you're going to see a tremendous and rapid evolution to reducing hospitalization using outpatient procedure due to the engineering innovations that you guys help create. Prosthetics speak for themselves. Manpower, there are not enough skilled folks to do skilled things despite the unemployment rate. And so some of these can be done by skilled robotics. And of course, another big driver, let's admit it, is the economic benefits for the folks like you who develop them and the folks who sell them and market them and so forth. So here is an example. As you know, it differentiates us from most other species is the ability to use our thumb as opposed to the rest of our hand. This is a child who's missing a hand and using a prosthetic to actually mimic this important function for a hand. And so I wanted to really keep drawing you back to what is the value of some of these things for the patients that we serve. And this will transform a child's life and their family's life very dramatically. Of course, there are other uses. This is quite amazing, actually, because prosthetics have evolved to a point where this fellow could, I don't know whether is he in the Olympics there, or is he running from the police? But either, I don't know. But it allows, he can do both. And years ago, this was unheard of. There is a similar model that is developed in Japan that my friend Ashkan came across. It's amazing what you find on the internet. That will actually replace what we call braces. The horseless carriage of braces now is going to be replaced by these types of robotics that not only support the limbs and joints, but actually have motility and mobility built into them. Very fascinating stuff. They can be programmed to do a lot of different things. Well, I talked about an economic driver before. What is going on economically? Well, one nice thing that's going on, I think, is the recognition now by the the major funding agency in the United States, National Institute of Health, of the value of clinical research to test the science of and proof of evidence of efficacy for these modalities. And you heard one of our speakers allude to the fact that there's debates going on about the actual proof of effectiveness and value. And it's true, there are, and part of it is because there has been precious little scientific research applied to the innovation. And we really need to go back there. The government has recognized this for drugs, for devices, and now for robotics, although they are much more stringent for drugs still than they are for the latter. But nonetheless, by recognizing it, they have developed a center at the NIH, the Center for Clinical and Translational Science. They have funded an institute for translational science. They have funded patient care outcome measurements, and they have put money into the actual testing of these modalities. And your dean and I have got our eye on some of that money, right? Absolutely. The FDA actually is very slow to have developed regulatory control of this particular innovation, this field of innovation, so that it is not regulated to the point of requiring scientific evidence of proof of efficacy. I'm sorry to say that, but that doesn't mean we can't do it. And in my job, teaming up with folks like you, I hope we can offer our patient population to actually do the science and not wait for the government to tell us we have to do the science. And that'll help translate this into effectiveness. The patients are there. The beta site testing can take place right down the block here at our hospitals or clinics, and it would augment the limited research that is already available, which is very sparse, to say the least. Now, the insurance and HMO industry are not on the positive side of all of this necessarily, but they are interested because it's very expensive to pay for some of these things. And so there is always an overlay of Wall Street looking in on what we're doing, as one of the other speakers mentioned before. So what is the most ethical and moral stance we can take on looking at robotics, automation, prosthetics, and so forth? You have to decide for yourself. Are we going to be altruistic about this and really do what's best for our patient and prove the value, or are we going to make a lot of money out of it? I don't have an answer, by the way, but that is part of the challenge. Now, part of the what the government has done, though, is to create at least a couple of regulatory statutes that will be of interest to you and us as we are collaborators. And one is financial conflict of interest legislation that was passed in actually it began in August of 2012. And it is a very careful monitoring of the research that goes on for these types of material innovations, where patent rights, venture capital investments, and stock options are looked at for not only the researchers, but the family of researchers, etc. Because there is a temptation, obviously, to do research that is conflicted with where your economic issues are. And secondarily, the Sunshine Act is now enacted, and beginning in January, the government will be requiring the industry to publish on the internet for everybody's access monies that they have exchanged with scientists and providers for use of these devices to avoid the natural biases you can imagine if you're getting paid to do something. But there are precious little other policies right now. There are policies to protect human subjects in research, obviously, and there are balances that we create when we do research. The problem is we're talking about it as if research is required, and that's where the policy deficit exists. Research is not required. as it is required for a new drug, but it is not required for these modalities, and it's up to us to develop, I think, us being those of us in the healthcare and the innovation side of healthcare, to take a special effort to make sure that we apply some scientific research to these modalities. They're very expensive, and part of these policies will really have to address issues of accessibility and costs of that, of these application of these inventions, so to speak. I was interested, before that horse, when that horse's carriage was, I really like that slide. Got to get a copy of it. There were no policies, you realize, for automobiles. There were none. And there were no regulations that regulated the rules of driving an automobile. So we're kind of a little bit at that stage right now in automation and robotics. There are precious few policies and regulations that describe the controls necessary so that these potential pitfalls are avoided. And I think those will be forthcoming. So what's the future going to look like? And this is my second to last slide, and it's one that tests your eye acumen. If you can't read it, I'll read it for you. Not the whole thing, but what this really is an interesting thing, which is a combination of a microbe, and my background is in infectious disease, so I'm drawn to this quite a bit. I want you to think beyond hardware and beyond technical engineering as your domain, but also this is bioengineering. This is using a biologic model, in this case a bacteria, that is changed in a way that it's carrying a drug. And it's also changed in a way that it responds to magnetic resonance imaging direction. So it's as if the signal for movement is externally applied without touching a patient. It's introduced into the bloodstream, and it's sent to a tumor at some place. And at that time when it arrives at the tumor, it explodes and releases the drug, chemotherapy, so to speak, if that's appropriate. And this is actually for cancer, and will attack the local tumor. And these are tumors that are particularly vascularized. They're around vascular tumors and intravascular tumors. This is just a model of using a biologic message, if you will, or a biologic prosthesis to enter the body and do some work without using the more traditional hardware piece. Viruses have been used for this as well, and in the future I think you're going to see an explosion of this particular technology as applied to chemotherapy in the same way the hardware technology is being applied to surgical methodology. So think of biology as well. This, I don't know if the future is going to look like this. This is what we all expected. I guess this is one of your future students, Dean. And I do think, though, that we're at the era where we are going to be replacing our horseless carriages in the clinical field with your products that will be making life better for our patients, and that's the bottom line. So thank you for inviting me.
Answer, or at least what's going on it. We talked about all the simulation now, and I know how much can be done and how much probably is being done with simulation, but then we also talked about all the new robotics and what's going on there. And I'd just like to know how much, you simulate ahead of time, but afterwards, for a physician, a surgeon to be able to use the robotics, or someone to be able to use the robotics, how much of that is being done today and how much will need to be done in the future? So I see there's got to be a synergy of the two totally working together, because, going with this robot, there's going to be a lot of training. So a lot of simulation, a lot of training. I don't know if you want to start answering it while we're waiting for this and make sure we got this hooked up. Is that on? Tell you what, I'll come over there with this, and once we get that, we'll go. But I thought,
There we
you know, I just asked that.
I think this is working here also. Yeah, we got this working.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Dr. Bethencourt, but while we're waiting.
Well, I think that, the use of simulation for, as you encounter these more difficult procedures, the unexpected, by capturing all that, which a lot of hospitals are doing in the OR suites by having cameras in the ceiling, and the concept of debriefing has become more important, and then leveraging that patient information, the lessons learned, and then building simulated procedures to mimic that is already starting to happen. It'll become more prevalent, and now there are technologies emerging, especially out of Europe, where they can take that data from the patient and convert it into a physical model that the doctors can interact with, and sometimes that conversion of data to a real model can take place in less than an hour. So there are private surgical training groups based out of Europe that are now spread in Taiwan and Latin America that are leveraging that, and it's become a business model for them where doctors are sending in cases with the patient data and then being able to practice a little bit beforehand and leverage that and teach others based on the lessons learned.
Okay, thank you.
Let me add something to that, because I think I want to reassure you folks, what's going on today is different than when I went to medical school. Now the medical students are actually practicing on simulators, computerized simulators. The nurses are practicing on computerized simulators. They exist right across the street in our hospital campus. They exist at the medical school campuses, so that the first time they're resuscitating you when your heart stops, they're not doing it without any practice. And whatever it is, a surgical procedure, medical procedure, delivering a baby, they are using simulators now routinely in medical schools in North America, to my knowledge. And I think Dr. Bethencourt could probably explain the training required to use his machines as well.
Super, thank you. Okay, Dr. Bethencourt, the challenge is here. We've been waiting for you. Everybody's anxious. Yeah, I'd just like to introduce him real quickly. Okay, Dr. Daniel Bethencourt does cardiac and thoracic surgery and is a robotics minimally invasive specialist at the Long Beach Memorial Medical Center. So,
thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. My sincerest apologies for thinking that we were supposed to start the the welcome reception at 5:30 and not 4 o'clock. But in any case, I'm going to talk a little bit about robotic heart surgery primarily. It's the primary, most of the procedures that I do. My specialty, I've been in practice 25 years, and I've had the good fortune of, from the beginning of my practice to now, to really witness and participate in the evolution of minimally invasive surgery of all types. And really, robotic surgery is just remote control surgery. And the advantage that it has is it minimizes the trauma for the patient, but really maximizes the amount of vision for the surgeon. But to digress a little bit, I'm going to give a little history of the Da Vinci robot and how this evolved over time, something I get asked every single lecture I give about robotic heart surgery. How did we get to this? Well, initially, the robotic advancements began in the 80s, really very recently. And it had to do with attempting to manipulate nuclear material from a remote site, or remote access, in order to do that safely. With that, there are other applications, including deep sea robots, the Titanic, and other robotic arms that were developed. About the same time, and really this happened right as I finished my surgical training in 1987, the first laparoscopic general surgical operation, laparoscopic cholecystectomy, was performed and began to be used. And I was at Long Beach Memorial, my first medical staff meeting, when the surgeons presented that one could do a gallbladder with the laparoscope in as little as 8 hours. Now that procedure is being done in 20 minutes, routinely throughout the country as the standard, to the point that, the training aspect, not only do general surgeons not have much experience with some operations, but gallbladder surgery, they have very little experience with open gallbladder surgery because everything is done laparoscopically. At the time, the laparoscopic procedures were limited to cholecystectomy and really very little application anywhere else, including cardiac and thoracic. Essentially no application in cardiac. And that's because those procedures were more complicated, it was more difficult to see, and required a lot more maneuverability of the devices. At the same time, there was a convergence of industry and academic centers expanding the technology of remote manipulation to medical fields. And the thinking was that this was a real opportunity for a company like Intuitive, although there were dozens of companies that started initially, to expand the scope of a laparoscopic or endoscopic procedure to more complex procedures. Around that time, DARPA funded several projects to try to do remote surgery with the idea that one could do a military application and we could operate here and have some sort of drone working somewhere else. And that turned into the Da Vinci robot, but really the initial intent was to do a remote surgery. That never flourished, but the use of it for minimally invasive surgery has been dramatic. As you might imagine with any type of engineering and manufacturing device, the early time frame in 1960, the first robots were crude, and gradually this console, you'll see, isn't much different than the console that I use now. And actually, the first console I used was very similar to that one. Similarly, each of the arms, these are the joints and the setup, this is what the robot essentially looks like now, only more streamlined. The vision system is a 3D vision. So what I see inside the robot is 10 times magnified, it's three-dimensional. And I can see certain structures, particularly the mitral valve, which is our most important and most complex procedure we do. I can see that better than any other approach that we do, without a question. So it's not just less invasive, it's definitely better in a lot of ways. And similarly, the evolution of the entire machine is now to the Da Vinci SI that you see there. And this has taken a relatively short period of time. I mean, from 1998 to now, it's amazing that this has occurred over this period of time. And even more amazing that, that we are able to do these procedures that we do now. So which procedures do? We do two kinds of procedures, intracardiac and revascularization or coronary bypass. Intracardiac means we work inside the heart with the heart stopped and we work on some particular structure, most often a valve repair with a mitral valve, also congenital defects, septal defects, and heart tumors as well. Why do we do this? Well, first of all, there's dramatically less trauma for the patient, there's less blood loss, there's zero wound infections. There's less pain and a faster recovery. And of course, patients much prefer to have a robotic procedure versus other types of open approaches. Similarly, with the development of the robot, the idea of doing less invasive heart surgery began to take hold. Now, this is 10 years after the laparoscopic cholecystectomy. The heart surgeons are certainly the most conservative, late adopting group for almost any procedure. But in this era, finally, some surgeons, particularly Dr. Toby Cosgrove at the Cleveland Clinic, developed methods for doing a less invasive or port access valve surgery through smaller incisions without cutting the breastbone, the sternum. Robotic surgery really started in 2006, 2007, at least for us, and involved all the different types of procedures that are done. So this is a minimally invasive mitral valve surgery. There's a small incision, we put a retractor. It's almost equally painful to a sternotomy, but it is less invasive. And the patients did pretty well. They went home in 3-4 days. They went back to work in 3 weeks. It was quite a bit of an improvement versus the standard procedure from before. So, why change or why go to a robotic procedure? We did about 115 of those operations before we got the robot. And I myself was skeptical because patients were doing well and they were going home earlier, and I was fairly happy with that operation. But the difference is that we can see better, improve visualization. Secondly, you'll see the dexterity of the instruments is dramatically better than trying to operate with a long stick or a couple of long sticks. Although we can do the procedure effectively, it's better with the robot in that way. So we can work inside the heart and do other procedures we couldn't do easily before. So we could move from a so-called mini thoracotomy or mini chest operation to a totally endoscopic procedure without any kind of retractor, So often the patients say they have no pain or very little pain for a couple days. Meanwhile, there are no restrictions. So unlike any other approach where we cut a muscle or split a rib, the patients go home and I specifically have them back a week later and say, you have no restrictions. You can do anything you want. You can lift, you can push, you can drive, because you can't hurt anything after a robotic mitral valve repair. The instruments have more degrees of freedom, greater mobility, and allows us to work as if we were using our own hands for the procedure. This scary looking slide is the setup for a mitral valve repair, where there's a small working port. This is the largest incision is 18 millimeters. All these other incisions are now 8 millimeters size, about the size of my pen. And through that, through the right side of the chest, we can do a mitral valve repair. So this is our view. And my view isn't much different from this. It's a 10 times magnified view. This is the mitral valve, which has a circumference or a diameter of about 2.5 centimeters, so about an inch. This patient had an abnormality of this section of his valve, which was, you can see there's a fair amount of redundant tissue, extra tissue here, so that we do a very standard mitral valve repair operation where we resect a triangle of this, the triangle of the abnormal tissue. Right here it starts being normal, and I can see that very clearly. And we remove all the extra cords and attachments of that piece of leaflet. Oh, there, okay. Okay, now how do I? There it is. And then we repair that directly as a triangle, or we put back together the other pieces of the remaining leaflet. Then we add a ring device that we use to shrink the circumference. Now our current echocardiograms at surgery tell me the directly measured circumference in each patient, and I take that and subtract 30% and decide the ring size largely based on that estimate. We then suture it in place. Now this is me. I have to explain a lot of times to patients. This is me, this is my left hand, this is my right hand. I'm actually operating this needle as if it was a live needle in my hands or in a needle holder. I need to see, and it's hard for you because the video is not as easy as I can see, but I need to see and drive that needle exiting right in this line edge of where this leaflet attaches, right there. And I can see that exactly accurately with the robot in a way I can't see any other way. And then once we've completed the ring device, we then inject the other side. This is the valve that's holding pressure. The other side is the ventricle that's generating the pressure. Well, we simulate that by injecting with the power injector, and we can see that there's a little jet that we don't like. These sutures here, these strings are adjustment sutures. We can adjust that ring with if we need to, but in this case that didn't work. So we decided we needed to close that little cleft right in there. So that, again, we can be accurate, we can be precise, we can do this very efficiently. I did a study of the timing of one operation versus another, open versus robotic, and the robotic procedure was 5 to 15 minutes longer. It is not longer. And that data and those results have been proven in a number of different institutions, particularly Mayo Clinic. So once we're done and happy, we then close back up. The one incision in the heart this way is that one incision in this left atrium. So there's no high pressure incision. This is the aorta, where normally with an open procedure we have to open, put a big tube in there, and close that up. And we are able to do that in an open procedure, but we don't do that at all with the robotic procedure. And then after, we check with the echocardiogram. That was 3D, but we can see that the valve is functioning. There's no leak. This is color flow, so there would be color coming back here, and there's zero leak. This patient went home 36 hours after surgery. 4 days later, he drove to Santa Barbara. I didn't suggest he drive to Santa Barbara, but he drove to Santa Barbara and had a friend drive behind him to be sure he's going to be okay. And then he drove back and he said, I'm doing fine. I'm going back to Memphis, where I'm from, and he did great. Okay. So these are the incisions 2 weeks later. One 18 millimeter working port, four other small 8 millimeter incisions, which by 6 weeks later disappear. But it's really not a cosmetic issue. The difference is that there is no trauma to the man's chest except for these punctures. We haven't cut any muscles, we haven't changed anything. So it's not just the economics of the hospitalization, it's not just that he goes home in 2 days, which is fairly routine, and that the experience is much better. It's not just that, it's actually he can return to work better, be fully functional, and the economics of that is extremely valuable. So as the insurers become global caretakers, as the hospitals and insurers and all this becomes one package as to we're responsible for taking care of patients with all the money spent, the economics, the global economics or the long-term economics of this becomes more significant. On the other hand, the immediate experience is really important because right now it's absolutely indicated to have a mitral valve operation even if you don't have symptoms. If you have severe leak of the mitral valve, severe mitral regurgitation, it is absolutely indicated because the mortality, the survival without repair is much worse than with a repair. So that the standard recommendations across the country, the guidelines are that one should have a repair. But patients won't come to repair if what you have to offer is a splitting the chest and 6 weeks recovery and you're out of work for 3 months. They will come and have a repair for a less invasive robotic procedure. And so it's actually better patient care all around. Our own experience is much larger than this, about 240 procedures thus far in the 6 years. And this is the slide where I compared the pump times, the actual cardiopulmonary bypass time for the same operation with sternum splitting versus robotic. And it's longer with robotic, but really very little longer. This is our length of stay, which is dramatically shorter, and this is in our very early experience. And so there are many, many big advantages to minimally invasive surgery with decreased pain and length of stay, disability. But with time, the experience is that the operation is the same, equal results, and just as good, just as fast as standard approaches. We've been doing robotic surgery at Long Beach Memorial since 2006 for about a little over 6 years. We do a range of procedures, minimally invasive bypass as well as the mitral that I showed you. It's not a procedure for everybody, but it does offer many important advantages. I'm going to show one other procedure we do. This is the minimally invasive bypass, where we do a standard, we do a bypass operation, but we use a small chest incision between two ribs. Similarly, we don't use any, we don't use the heart-lung machine, we don't stop the heart. It's a much less invasive operation. We used to do it by lifting the patient off the table with a retractor like this and doing the procedure with the long cautery like that. But now we do this with the robot. It allows us to do a procedure with a much smaller incision and less trauma. We still make a thoracotomy incision. And we've had a really improved early results, and as a result, more patients have come for that procedure. Cardiologists have referred more patients for that. So there are a number of advantages, not all of them surgical and not all of them having to do with the early economics. This is one other procedure which I'll skip. So, not to burden you with any more fun videos, but are we done after this? Thank you. Well, we'll answer any questions all together.
Dan,
Thank you, Dr. Bethencourt. Boy,
Dan,
amazing.
Can you clarify, I may have missed it, but I want to make sure they understand where you were, where you are, and where the patient is actually in the operating room.
Yeah, I didn't actually show a picture of that, but the robot with the 3 arms is at the bedside, which I showed you in the one slide. I'm at the corner of the room on the console visualizing the innards of the procedure. And that's why, especially in these intracardiac procedures where there are multiple procedures, you saw someone with a hook coming through, that's my assistant surgeon. He's operating as well, and he is at the bedside doing part of the procedure in a sense assisting me, but at the same time helping me move along. so that all of us are involved. And I'm, truly remote control. I'm here, and the operating table's there. They can hear me, and we can talk, but I'm really not at the bedside operating on the patient. I'm actually working through the computer on the robot to do that.
Thank you. Okay, we should have time for some questions now. I'd like to open it up, see if people have questions. You want to step, how do we want to do this? Just use this microphone, and we have, what, 2 microphones up there? Okay. Nikki, do you want to go around, or you want to? Oh, you have the stand, okay. Just come on up. We'll start asking questions. Someone have a question? Or do you want me to start asking questions? Okay. You ready? Ready?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you for a very informative presentation. I just was wondering if I understood you right, you do off-pump with the Da Vinci robot?
Yes, but the Da Vinci robot in those procedures is used primarily to take down the artery off the chest wall and have that available in an atraumatic way instead of lifting the patient up as we used to. The actual surgery I still do off-pump, but with direct instruments with myself. Colleagues of mine around the country are using a couple of different methods for doing the actual suturing with the robot, and I have done that. One of them is a connector device. It's another, sort of ingenious application of engineering, marvel, that the connector device connects the 2-millimeter artery to a 4-millimeter incision on the heart in one fire. It's a stapler that puts 13 staples in a 4-millimeter space, and it's accurate. It's has an excellent. It's actually better in small vessels than hand-sewn connections, and so that is an option. It's not something I've done yet myself for a number of different reasons, but yeah. But most of what we do, the actual surgery, is direct.
Thank you so much. Since I have this, I will ask one more question. The same Da Vinci machine that's used for general surgery is used for cardiac surgery, or you have extra accessories, there are different parts to it?
Yes, it's the same exact platform. There are some innovations that are used in general surgery that we don't need. So there are ways that the general surgeons can, for example, selectively light up tumors. So they put a fluorescent light through the robot, and then they inject a fluorescently active substance into the patient, and then they can see what's tumor and what's not tumor, and they can resect, more carefully in certain areas. So there are certain innovations they use that we don't, but it's exactly the same machine.
Thank you so much.
Most of the instruments are the same, which is interesting. The actual GYN used to be the GYN, urology and general surgery and cardiac had all different instruments, and actually with the robot, most of the things we use are very similar.
In terms of what's been deployed, I would say our patient simulators, because of nursing and anesthesia's early adaptation or adoption of it, you're talking in the, not only ours, but if you took our competitors, so anybody who's doing patient simulation in the higher fidelity format, you're talking in the maybe 15,000 of them deployed around the world for over 15 years. I would say second to that would probably be on the endoscopy side, with colorectal cancer being on a dramatic rise globally. Screening programs like they've done in Korea and Japan are spreading, so the need to train doctors and maintain their skill set if you're more rural based and you don't maybe see as many patients, that's growing. But if I had to look out 5-7 years, I would say our ultrasound simulator. Ultrasound guided, I can't say everything, but a lot of things. The application, whether it's putting in a central line, you have institutions that will not allow you to put in a central line unless it's ultrasound guided and you've been trained using simulation to ultrasound guided surgical procedures, etc. So that's what I would say, what we're seeing now.
In our business, we're really focused on the surgical aspects of delivering medicine, and where we found ourselves gravitating towards is minimally invasive surgery, particularly laparoscopy, where Applied's home is in that area is providing access products to minimally invasive surgeons. And what we're seeing now is our primary products are access products and instruments that go through those access products. Where we're seeing is this trending towards making minimally invasive surgery less invasive. And so we went from open procedures to small ports. You saw some of that in the latest presentation. And where we're seeing the trend go is to reduced port surgery and ultimately no port surgery. And so you might ask, well, how do you do surgery without accessing the patient's body? And the way it gets accessed is through a natural orifice. And so we're seeing a trending towards either reduced ports, a single port, or sort of natural orifice surgery, to where you have no scars or no incisions whatsoever. And this is a good question, because in order for that to occur, it's been tried. It's very complicated. It's challenging to perform. Where that's going to happen is where robotics can come in and make that actually feasible. It wasn't feasible. It was very challenging, but with robotics and the right instruments and the right access, these can be feasible again in the future, and that's where we see it going if you just focus on the surgical aspects of medicine.
I just want to add to that also, if you have a chance to go outside and you can see one of the simulators there, when Gary's talking about fewer ports, you can see a nice example of that on the simulator, where you have a single port that allows multiple tools simultaneously through one entrance point.
Well, I will say it has not been the reason that I went to robotics as I got older. Let's just start right there. But no, we are in a seated position, and we are, the robot takes away the tremor of the surgeon. We all have a natural tremor, all of us do. And the robot will eliminate that. So in that sense, we can drink as much coffee as we want. But still, there's a certain amount of, you can't, it doesn't remove the higher heart rate during surgery. And if you do telemetry of surgeons, this is described long ago, surgeons, when they start to scrub, their heart rate goes up. And then when it stays up the whole time they're scrubbed, and then when they're finished, it comes back down. And it doesn't change that. If anything, there's a little more of that. One is dependent on all the other team members too. And so, although I'm not necessarily, my team members are trained and experienced and the procedures go smoothly, still, I'm focused in on one thing, but there's a lot going on as well that I want to be, that I'm directing the flow. So, although it does remove the physical leaning over, there are laparoscopic surgeons who've had a number of neck and back issues related to their position in surgery. It does remove that. At the same time, there still is this physical, psychological stress factor that doesn't change.
You know specific numbers between survival rate of those who had mitral valve procedure done, mitral valve repair, and those who doesn't?
Yes, not right off the top of my head, but I know that, for example, 5-year mortality with severe mitral regurgitation is higher without a repair than with, and it's across all age groups.
And the age do not influence those numbers?
With all age groups, it is an indication for surgery.
The main reason for people to die with that condition, what would you say?
There's a condition that people have where the valve itself is not 100% normal. The tissue of the valve is relatively weak, and then that stretches over time and then begins leaking. And that can happen at any number of ages.
I understand, but why leaking causing death?
Pardon? Why does the mitral valve leak cause mortality?
Yes.
Arrhythmias, heart failure, and sudden events. Usually it's arrhythmias. Sudden death comes from arrhythmias.
From leaking, the sudden arrhythmia.
The leaking valve creates a situation where that can be a setup for it.
I see. I understand. Thank you.
You know, everything that seems far-fetched 20 years later is kind of a boring reality. This anastomosis device of connecting two arteries that are 2 millimeters large or even 1 millimeter large, would seem completely, a fantasy. But in fact, that exists and it works and it's used. So that is already automated. There's a new device just developed, similar to some of what Gary was talking about. There's a new device for tying knots that we started using recently. A general surgeon and his company designed it for tying laparoscopic knots. And it's a device that one tightens the two sutures, and instead of me tying 5 knots, as good as I am, after all these years, you just take a little clip, push, and fire. And that simple little device, that knot and that tie is better than I can possibly do. So it's more expensive, but we've switched to it because of that. At the other extreme, when I was in general surgery, when I was a medical student, surgical staplers were being used for the first time in general surgery and others. And as students, we thought, oh yeah, you know, and as residents, you know, oh yeah, you can't sew, you got to use a stapler. In fact, it's a better anastomosis, it's a better connection, it's a better than one can sew. So no, I don't think there's going to be a robot that comes up and repairs the mitral valve based on the echo anytime soon. But a lot of things get automated that make sense.
Okay, well, I'd like everybody to give our speakers just a great hand. It's been wonderful. And again, thank you for spending your time with us, because it's been valuable to us. We really appreciate it coming. Let's see, I need to announce our next lecture date. It's October 24th. Yeah, October 24th will be our next distinguished lecture series. Not sure what the topic is yet, but we may do something follow on to this we've been talking about. So we're going to be looking at another topic. If people have suggestions, if they can get it to the dean's office, or somehow get it to us, we'd love to get suggestions for new topics. So thank you, everybody, and thank you for being here. I'd like to turn it back to Dean Goswami. Do you have a microphone? Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. It was a great panel. Really enjoyed it. We should have announced it at the beginning. Don't try this at home. Your V system ain't going to do it for you. It was informative, it was great, and it is a new challenge to my colleagues here in the engineering college on what to look at for next. With this, we bring this event to a conclusion. There are small gifts that have been prepared for the speakers. I presented to them. I thank every one of you for participating, and invite you to come back in October 24th, Thursday again, for the next distinguished lecture. Thank you.